At you, only on 933 KFM.
Welcome back to this edition of the 933 KFM Hot Seat. You can join us in this discussion and by sending us messages on 6933 or send those messages via our Facebook wall. We'll read out the questions and the comments and you'll get responses from the panel in the studio. And like I said earlier, the panel has Godber Tumushabe, he's a policy analyst. Jackie Asiimwe is an activist and national politician.
Formerly a provincial one.
The biggest question, I'd like to throw it back to Jackie. This country has immense resources beyond oil. No one is paying attention. No one is asking questions about them. Why the rush? Who is being delayed by this whole oil process?
I think the greedy are the ones being delayed, in my view. But also, something that we have been trying to do is exactly to point out how have other mineral resources, natural resources been managed or not, and therefore what lessons does that have for us as we try to manage our oil resource. And I think when we ignore it, when we ignore what happens in Karamoja, when we ignore what has happened in Kasese, when we ignore, then we are not learning and therefore not doing it right. So in my view, we need to, and the delay is for us to, you don't just rush, you need to prepare yourself so that you reap maximum benefit for this country, if that is what your real intention is. When you rush, it's only the greedy and corrupt that can benefit from such a system. And in fact, they're the ones that push the buttons for this rush.
Godber, you were debating, you are a lawyer, I'm not a lawyer. Angelo tried to be a lawyer. The rest of the team here are lawyers. I'm not one of them, so I'm in the wrong club, obviously. But the question is, you have a law 1985. It's inadequate. You have a policy 2008. And you have bills that were just coming to Parliament in December. They actually not presented until early this year. And people asking, why the dilly-dallying when it comes to creating the right legal framework?
Yeah.
And why the defense that Ghana is already producing, yet it doesn't have an oil law?
Yeah. No, I would just start off by just making a comment on what Angelo said, that there between the 1985 law and the current bill that is in Parliament, especially for upstream legislation, that there is no difference.
I said, is there a significant difference?
There is no significant difference.
With regard to the argument that it should have, this new legislation should have been the basis upon which the new agreements would have been signed.
Let me make just two quick points. One is that, in fact, if you asked me, between the 1985 legislation and the current bill in Parliament, I would say Uganda should retain the 1985 legislation.
Why?
Because the law that is the draft bill that has been presented in Parliament essentially tries to concentrate power and authority in the presidency. And how is this done? That law provides, under the section, the part dealing with institutional framework, that law provides for the first institution called minister. Now there is no precedent anywhere where a law creates an institution called minister, because a minister ordinarily is responsible for the implementation of the entire act. So you don't create an institution called minister.
And keep referring to the minister.
Yes,
the minister will.
In that law, the minister has the power to issue licenses, to regulate oil exploitation activities, to appoint the executive director of the Petroleum Authority, to appoint the directors of the Petroleum Authority, and to issue directives on how the Petroleum Authority would be working. And so what that means is that that process essentially shows you that actually power is being concentrated in the appointing authority of the minister. I would not, if I was Parliament, that law would be sent back to the drafters, because I think it's a bad law and it is suicidal.
And
for
you'd
this
be
country.
accused of sabotage and delaying
and
the
of
process
course,
further.
in fact, you'd be accused of sabotage and
so he is
delaying
answered
the
in the affirmative.
And the legal framework,
that
I think,
deal
is
should have been
only
signed
one
under
piece.
the pre-existing law.
The legal framework is only one piece. I think added to the legal framework, we must look at our governance framework. We must look at the way we address corruption. We must look at all these other things, the environment, So there's also focusing on one narrow piece as though the law will be the end all. It's not, it's just part of it. And I think we need to be, as Ugandans, focusing on all and pressing all buttons to ensure that, like I said, the oil will deliver part of what we expect it to, which is a better Uganda in some respects, in terms of infrastructure, and yeah.
I would want to know whether Angelo believes in consensus.
I
Okay.
do.
I'm willing
believe
to
in-
accept that we shouldn't be over obsessed with laws. We have excellent laws, including traffic laws, which nobody
Respect. Yeah.
respects.
including health ordinances that
Yeah.
required restaurants here to be bug free, but you eat in them.
So
So
what's the point? Okay. What's the
Instead
point?
of the president jumping the gun and looking at this as a partisan issue, okay, it is a manifestly political issue, but it should not be a partisan issue.
Yeah, exactly.
The reason why, actually, the hullabaloo in parliament, all the complaints and all the jittery exchanges is precisely because the president has not built consensus. Now, how does a president build consensus? A president builds consensus by recognizing that there are other players apart from himself. Now, President Museveni does not recognize the rest of us. As far as he is concerned, the opposition is engaged in a sideshow for which there are no medals.
He's been dishing them out at a terrific speed lately.
Well, but anyway,
Yeah, go ahead, Nobert. Finish your thought.
Why can't President Museveni build consensus? In all legislatures, there are those you call floor leaders. I remember the speaker, James Wapakabulo. When there's a controversial issue, you see the way his eye moves. He says, Nobert Mao here, Okule Park there, Ben Wacha here, Kahindo Tafire here, the Brigadier, this one from Hoima.
Matai Chaligonza.
Matai
Brigadier
Chaligonza.
Matai Chaligonza.
Yeah.
You know, he knew how to pick people because he believes that those are the pressure points of parliament. Now, President Museveni should know that they are traditional leaders. He needs to meet with them, bring them on board. There are local governments.
Yep.
There is the business community. I agree, it is important that Uganda continues to create an environment which attracts the flow of foreign investment. That's very important. And there are small countries like Maldives that are attracting a lot of money in spite of their chaos and so on. But what we need is stability. Why is it that in spite of the chaotic politics of Kenya, somehow Kenya is always ahead in attracting foreign investment? Because the governments in Kenya, whether they are really democratic or not, they have what you call an establishment. And a national establishment consists of every player.
Yeah.
It consists of all sorts of contradictory people, but they are tending in the same direction. They may even be clashing, but they move like cattle, even as they are clashing and locking horns, but you can say that the herd is moving in this direction. Now, in Uganda, we seem to be moving in circles. And President Museveni has decided that he should ignore some of the most politics as in the and meet and share views. We don't hate foreign investors, but he needs to reassure us. Now he says he is seeing the constitution and the laws as an obstacle. Is the constitution to blame for his lack of persuasive ability? I mean, when you're head of state, you're supposed to persuade others. If you fail to persuade people, you don't say that the law is bad. The president
I
should...
thought the constitution has been the flagship document he has spearheaded and has tried to anchor his
When it
democratic
meets his
credentials.
ends. When it
Charles,
meets his ends.
Charles, you know that I think the president started rewriting the constitution from the first day he was sworn in.
He first denounced the provision on land.
No. Yeah, no, yeah.
When he's
When
been
he
sworn in
signed
several
the-
several
when he
times,
signed the
so
constitution,
when he signed,
He says he likes the constitution,
with
but
the
he does not
exception
like
of
the
provision
provisions on land.
After swearing in 1996, the first, I always remind people that his first major policy decision was to go to Parliament to ask for Parliament to pass a resolution to increase cabinet. And because the constitution had set the limit of cabinet ministers.
Yeah.
From that time up until now, the constitution has been
has been
written
chipping away
and
at it, yeah.
Yeah, he's been chipping away on it up until now.
It's been inconveniencing him and he's been
Charles,
kicking it on the side.
Charles, before you
Can I
take
take a couple of
you
messages
take
before
your
we take the
calls,
break?
let me just respond to a couple of fundamental things. I can speak exhaustively about the oil bills. I've read 3 of them. I have read the national oil policy, and I can speak exhaustively about why a country like ours with an inshore under the current circumstances needs the kind of pace that the government have set. But the political issues that Chairman Mao has raised on this 50th anniversary, people who are listening to you must appreciate that Uganda and Ugandan politics is an experiment. There are fundamental issues, yes. Me, my family have been cultural leaders. Sure enough, we will want to ask, what is the claim of this Ugandan state that is 50 years old on land that it's appropriating, when there are elder societies that have been here over 1,000 years? There are fundamental issues that politics can interrogate, and they're important to this oil sector. But as far as the industry, where it is now proper, that political experiment that is ongoing, that Chairman Mao is a part of, must, as much as possible, coexist with the intent of this industry to change the face of this country. And I'm willing to bet that this pace is in fact slower. That deal should have been signed 20 months ago, not 20
Angelo,
months
some
after.
people will raise an argument and say, in the 18th century, during the time of slave riders and local chiefs, the chiefs, once they'd gotten their cut from those who were buying slaves, they would even deploy more people to catch as many people as fast as possible, so that the people at both could move.
The point you're making is
the
that
difference?
the point you're making is that society, politics being an experiment, is that it is always prone to either going in a good direction or a bad direction.
Let me just read 2 messages and then we'll take a break. Tamale Alion says, His Excellency Mao is a good orator, though not very active, but he should physically be part of the ongoing campaigns. Thanks. I don't know which campaigns. I should imagine. I don't want to make guesses. Tumuhimbise Rogers says, but what is Uganda's problem? And oil is a curse to Uganda or a challenge to the government. Are ministers relevant without power? That's a critical question we'll answer after the break. But let me take from Agaba Rugaba, who says, isn't Uganda already amidst the oil curse? The National Development Plan 2010-2015 indicates a plan to build a 700 megawatt thermal power plant alongside the oil refinery. Will this be implemented? Shall we beat the 2015 deadline? I don't see government starting on any of these projects that will mitigate economic stagnation, a facet of the oil curse. Thank you. Let's take the break and come back to this discussion.
It's live. It's hot, provocative, and digs deep into the issues. It's KFM's Hot Seat
in association with Nile Gold, a crystal malt lager beyond an